In this lesson, we'll learn how to create previews for our animations so we know exactly how they look as they play back at their right frame rate. So we wouldn't want to rely on the playback in Max to determine if our animation is moving at the right pace, the right frame rate. Instead, what we'd want to do is create a preview. So what could happen is, if it's not moving at the right pace, you may overlook hiccups in the animation, and that can lead to a lot of work that has to be redone. Okay, so it's a lot safer if we go ahead and create these previews. So what I like to do is find a good camera angle to make sure that we can see the animation in its entirety, making sure that everything looks good before we're ready to go ahead and create this preview, and then see if we can hand off the file after the fact. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and create the preview now. Now, in earlier versions of Max, it was under the animation menu and it was called Make Preview. But now you can find it under the Tools menu, grab Viewport, and here it is, Animated Sequence File. So if we go ahead and choose Create Animated Sequence File, that's going to bring up the Make Preview dialog where we can define what happens in the preview. Okay, so I'm going to leave the active time segment, that's the range in Max, the frame range. For the frame rate, that's fine, 24 frames per second. We want to render every frame, so we'll leave the every nth frame set to 1. I'm going to go ahead and set the percentage output for our image size to 100, so we have a large view to work with. And then, being that our cables are curves, I'm going to go ahead and under Display and Preview, check on Shapes. Okay, but everything else should be fine. Our output will be AVI. Now just go ahead and choose Create and pause the video. When we come back, we'll have the preview of our animation. Here's our preview. Okay, great. So now we can be sure that the animation is playing back at the right frame rate. Now before we close off this lesson, let me go ahead and show you some other things you want to keep in mind when working with previews. Your previews are going to be stored in whatever project you have set. So if we were to go to Views, or go to Tools, grab Viewport, and select Rename Animated Sequence File, we can find out exactly where that file is going to be stored, in the Previews folder of your project. Now notice Max by default names the file _scene. Now if we go ahead and rename this file, we're not going to be able to view the preview or rename it from Max. We'll need to go to the Previews folder and do it from there. So I'm going to go ahead and rename this just to show you that. I'll go ahead and choose Rename and call this the Pod Racer _ Animation Preview. Okay, so now that it's been renamed, again, if we go to Tools, we go to grab Viewport, View Animated Sequence File, we can't do it. If we go back to Tools and choose Rename, we can't do it. Again, we need to go to the Previews folder. But if we keep that name _scene, everything will come up. Now at the same time, that file will always be overwritten. Okay, so that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Max is not going to keep creating these _scene files. So with that said, that's going to finish the animation portion of this course. I'd like to thank you for following along with this as well as the rigging portion. So what's next is to add some dynamics to the pod racer, and that will start in the next lesson.